Jason is the creator of Journal Map, a web application that maps geotagged scientific literature based on the locations where studies were conducted. As a research ecologist with the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Jason focuses on conservation and sustainable land management. Through his research and outreach projects around the world, he realized that discovery of scientific knowledge was limited because there was no efficient way to search for literature geographically or to analyze geographic patterns of knowledge. Journal Map was developed to address these needs and has quickly grown beyond the domain of sustainable agriculture to applications across environmental, earth, and medical science. Jason holds a PhD in ecology with an expertise in informatics.
Great, thank you. It's good to be here today. I'm grateful to have this opportunity. I just wanted to give a brief introduction to Journal Map today and maybe go through a little bit of the rationale for why we came up with this tool and how we're using it, and then look a little bit at the opportunities that we see as the potential behind the idea of Journal Map. In the world in which we live today with these smart devices that we have, we kind of take for granted that there's so much map-based information that's available to us just really easily. All right, well, my slides are getting ahead of me here. There's so much map-based information that's available, right? So when I come to a new place, if I want to find someplace to eat, I just bring up my phone and I say, where are the coffee shops around here? If I don't want to go to the Starbucks across the street, I want to go someplace else. What's available to me? And then really quickly or really easily, I can get then a map sort of presentation of where these are and kind of pick where I want to go, right, based off that information. And so the question that we sort of came up with is why can't I as a scientist, as a researcher, find information on research that easily, right? Okay, and then you may be saying, well, wait a minute here, we can do location-based searching, in Google Scholar or Web of Science. You can put, kind of runaway slides here. You can put a search term in and get a bunch of results for wherever, Washington D.C. or wherever you happen to be. But I guess I would sort of posit that that's an incomplete result, and in some cases I'm missing a lot of relevant information. For example, what if I wanted to search for records from a specific place? This maps here on the right are an example of that we put together for where I live, which is southern New Mexico, down in Las Cruces here. And we do a lot of studies about sort of agricultural productivity and soil erosion in the Chihuahuan Desert. So what if I want to know what research has been done in the Chihuahuan Desert? And so we did a Web of Science literature search for that. We came up with almost 1,000 articles. And then through the beauty of indentured servants, graduate students, we actually mapped all of those articles, put a pin on a map for where every one of them was done, and we found that only about half of those studies actually came from the Chihuahuan Desert. Right? And then what's more though, if you actually start getting in and looking, and this is based off of some other data that we had already from Journal Map, the sort of blue-purple pins here are other studies that were in the Chihuahuan Desert but didn't show up in our search because they didn't have those search terms in them. They didn't have those keywords in them, right? And so what we need is a way to search for knowledge geographically that's not beholden to the geographic terms that authors or publishers assign to them. Extend this idea. What happens if I don't want to necessarily search for southern New Mexico, but I want to search for someplace else in the world that's similar to southern New Mexico? How would I do that, right? We don't have an efficient mechanism for doing that kind of thing. Or what if I want to add some other criteria like climate or demographics or some sort of economic factors there as well? And so this is kind of what drove us to create Journal Map. And Journal Map basically is a geographic-based literature discovery tool. It's a available on the web right now, journalmap.org, and the whole goal is to help people find information that's relevant to them based off of their topic. So with Journal Map, it's really quick, it's easy to get into a presentation of the articles themselves. We can restrict it based off of some key terms here. We can add additional filters to the information. For each of the articles, we get a little bit of, and we get the citation information here. If we have abstracts that are available to us through the agreements we have, we can display the abstracts there as well. It's important to note here that what we're mapping are the actual locations where the studies were done. We're not mapping author affiliations or anything like that. Knowing that I am from southern New Mexico tells you nothing about sort of where I do research, because I actually don't have any active research projects in New Mexico. Okay, my research goes from basically southern border of the United States all the way up to the North Slope of Alaska. Okay? So knowing where I live isn't really a useful piece of information. For each of the articles then, when we sort of click on it, we link out to the publisher's page for that article via Crossref through the DOI number. If we don't have a DOI, we can substitute any other URL in there as well. A little bit distracted. So again, with Journal Map, we're trying to help people sort of discover the knowledge that's available and then get them out to wherever they can access that content. So we're not distributing any content directly through Journal Map, and your ability to access that article would depend on what kind of subscription that your institution has where you're at. Results we can also do sort of tabular or list results here. We can export those results in a number of different formats. We're adding more formats into that list as well. One of the things that we've added in the last year with Journal Map is this idea of a collection. And so a collection is basically a saved search in Journal Map. You go in, you identify a bunch of articles, you can grab them, package them up as a collection, give it a title, give it a description. It creates an actually unique web page for you. It has a static URL. So one of the ways that we can use this is for what we would call a georeferenced CV, right? And this is, basically intended to feed that kind of academic narcissism, right? Everybody's looking for what their impact is. I'm no different than anybody else, right? I like to see those products that kind of show my impact as a researcher, right? And then all this information is, again, available via a static URL. We can also get to it all through our API, so you can embed those results in other products as well. So how do we use this information? There's that knowledge discovery piece too, but there's also sort of the outputs from Journal Map that I think are really valuable. One of the most simple ones is this idea of the geographic bibliography. We have a topic. In this case, sage grouse is a species that's been listed for protection under the Endangered Species Act. It's driving a lot of the discussions of land management in the western United States with the U.S. land management agencies like the Forest Service and the BLM. So we have a collection in Journal Map that's pretty much a comprehensive look at what the literature is on sage grouse and where it comes from. We can also look at this idea of knowledge transfer and discovery. This gets back to that idea of searching from similar areas. And this was really the case study that kind of led us to create Journal Map, right? So we have projects through the USDA, we have projects in sub-Saharan Africa. And their soil erosion and loss of agricultural productivity is a big deal. There's not a lot of research that's actually been done in that specific area, but if you look in terms of the soils and what the climate of that area is, it's very, very similar to where I live in New Mexico. And so we could say, well, you know what we know about soil erosion in New Mexico should apply in southern Africa, but how would I ever find that? And so Journal Map is a tool now that makes this possible. We can go into an area that we're interested in Africa. We can identify what that area is in terms of its environment, and then we can search for similar areas around the world and see what knowledge exists there as We can also then start to analyze the patterns there. And so this is a little project that we're working on in terms of creating packaged analytics for collections, or for, in this case, a journal. And so this map represents sort of the global distribution of content from this journal for the last about 10 or 12 years, right? And so we can look at not just the distribution of the knowledge, where that knowledge is actually coming from, where it's coming from relative to the scope of this journal. And then through our API, we can start mashing up this content with other services as well. This is iDigBio is a group that works with digitizing museum collections, so species collections in museums. We can start to overlay journal map records with these other records and get a better picture, a more complete picture of what the knowledge on a topic actually is. Through the API as well, we have full access to the location information, the citation information that's in the journal map database, and we can start to embed that into other applications, or drop maps of, say, like the map of all the articles in a journal, and drop that into a web page. Who we're working with right now, several publishers. Taylor and Francis was the first publisher that we worked with. Pensoft is an interesting one for us, so we have an agreement to geotag all the content from Pensoft articles, and asterisk is there because we're doing kind of real-time content aggregation from Pensoft. At this point, we're at about 21,000 articles in Journal Map, which is a drop in the bucket compared to what we want to be at, but we are actively seeking new partnerships to try to really generate more and more content in the system. The thing is that this is all doable. That location information is in these articles. We just need to pull it out. The problem is it's in all sorts of different formats. Okay? And so you can see we have coordinates in different formats on the left. We have some articles that are just place name descriptions. Sometimes they're in tables, sometimes they're not. Before I skewer anyone in unnecessarily, these are all examples from articles that I've published. So I'm just as much to blame as anybody else here, right? But there are mechanisms that we can go in and sort of pull that stuff out. We can read any number of different formats to get content into the system. We can get it back out through Journal Map's website, through downloads and access to the articles, and through the API as well. This is where we're at right now. Okay, we're faced with a situation where we're kind of playing catch up, right? And we have a semi-automated process for grabbing this content out of the articles. The further we go back in time, the more we have to actually use our indentured servants and then do the manual geotagging with this. Okay, but where we can go, if we can agree on how we're going to report locations and achieve these machine-readable kind of ways of encoding those locations in, then this whole process becomes automated, and then I think that really unlocks the potential for this kind of idea. So this is kind of what we're really interested in promoting now, standard approaches to doing this, working with the publishers that we have agreements with now. We've worked with all of them to improve their instructions for authors, which has resulted in a big improvement in our ability to kind of pull this location information out of these articles. And then ideally, we would love to get to the point where these locations are actually encoded in machine-readable formats in the articles themselves. And I would hold up as an example, Pensoft is actually doing this already, which makes it almost 100% recall for us to be able to get these locations out of their articles. We have a kind of a grand vision here. There's a lot of things afoot, a lot of development that's happening. I guess I would just kind of highlight here that we're putting a lot of effort, not just on developing the system, but on developing partnerships to generate more content for the system and to expand to new science domains. When you go to Journal Map right now, you'll see that sort of my bias as an ecologist and in sort of ecology and agriculture is kind of prevalent there. We are looking at adding more kind of generic like search features for different knowledge domains, and I think that this does have some pretty broad applicability to different fields. And so just to kind of sum up, the place is a central part of a lot of the research that we do, right? So this location matters. Just in the news recently, right? We have all sorts of things. We've had, Ebola was a big thing this last fall and winter, right? That's all location-based stuff. And that location becomes important to understand the patterns of research and the patterns of knowledge and to be able to sort of address the problems and the issues that we have. And I think that tools like Journal Map kind of help us leverage that knowledge, that sort of location-based knowledge to advance our fields. So that's it. Thank you.